Coach Kaleb Edwards gets his first 5-star commitment today.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into the Locked On Bama AHSA's radio network. Luke Robinson, that's me, and on threes, Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, huge commitment today, just happened. We wanted to go live with it. Dijon Lee, we all knew it was coming, but Dijon Lee commits to Alabama, and it's a big deal, and it's Kaleb Edwards' first 5-star.
Yeah, a couple of things about that. Obviously, any BOL, we felt really good about Dijon Lee for a good long while now. I mean, we've been kind of driving this train. Even there was some question this week about Georgia, but I think at BOL our batting average is around 100% on Tim's and Andrew's predictions and their RPMs. So you sort of were pretty confident about this, even though Dijon Lee is such a big time, as Luke said, the first 5-star to commit to Alabama. Now that's a bit misleading, because I happen to believe, and I think a lot of you guys listening to this was going to believe too, a couple of kids already committed to Alabama are likely to end up 5-stars. I mean, I think Keelan Russell has a good chance at being a 5-star. Jackson Lloyd, the tackle from California, I think almost certain to end up a 5-star. Duke Johnson has a shot at 5-star. Even Derek Smith, but 5-star.
Michael Carroll.
Oh, of course, Mike Carroll. Mike Carroll's in 5-star territory with on 3. And as far as I'm concerned, if you are a 5-star at any of the 4 major sites, you're a 5-star to me. You don't have to be a 5-star on the industry ranking at on 3 to be a 5-star to me. Hey, if any site gives you that 5th star, boom, you're a 5-star prospect. But anyway, my point is, I think Jackson Lloyd is going to be a 5-star. I think Mike Carroll has a chance. Keelan Russell has a good chance. So, yes, Dijon Lee is the first kid who already has that 5th star awarded to him, committed to Alabama. And for that reason, it's big. And we'll talk about Dijon's skill set in a minute. But I just want to throw that out there, that I think other kids who are committed will become 5-stars. The ranking process is always in flux. It's always being worked on and modified and adjusted until it becomes final. And it won't be final until, February of next year.
One thing that's very interesting about Dijon Lee to me, first of all, 6'3" and a quarter. Y'all are getting pretty specific over there on 3. 6'3" and a quarter, 195 pounds, lanky, long arms. I mean, everything you want. I think Tim Watt said it best in a little nugget on BOL. Y'all go check that out. But he said the thing about him that they really love is that on short routes, he'll eat up a lot of space. You don't have much of a window to throw into when you're trying to do a short passing game. And when you got a guy that's 6'3" and long arms, that's going to be a problem to squeeze it in that window, if you know what I'm saying. But this is something interesting to me, that on 3 has him a high 4-star, number 48 player in the country, which I think is that. By the way, that's the lowest. You guys, you got to fix that. 24/7 has him number 40. Rivals has him number 30. ESPN has him number 25. According to all those, he is a very high 4-star. But because you combine all those, the composite equals a 5-star. I think he will end up being more of a 5-star across the board when all is said and done. But he is a composite 5-star, but not a singular 5-star.
Right.
I just find that interesting.
It is. It's how the math works. I mean, based on the industry. We could get into the math, but the industry ranking that on 3 does takes all 4 services into account. It's sort of averaged out, but they give more weight to on 3 and 24/7 because, in our opinion, on 3 and 24/7 does the best job of ranking the players. So the Rivals and the ESPN rankings are factored in mathematically, but not as strongly as the on 3 and 24/7 ranking. So when you add up, as Luke said, the average of all of those things, and after you add up all the averages, if you're landing in the top 32, then you are an industry 5-star. And Dijon, when you take into account all the averages, he has one of the top 32 averages. And that's why he's a 5-star. But look, a spectacular prospect. As Luke said, his height, his size is what makes him so elite. It's rare. It's rare. Go to the NFL rosters right now and count up how many NFL corners are 6'3" and above. You won't find them. You won't find many. And what stands out to me, Luke, is there's a lot of kids that play cornerback that are roughly that height. But when they get to college, they're like, you're a safety. Or, really, you're going to put on some weight and be a linebacker. I mean, that's what Dijon's different because the projection for him is cornerback. He's not projected to move to another spot. This is a guy that's believed to be athletic enough to stick at corner. I would also say that in Alabama's scheme, Luke, I think Husky is something that could end up in his future. I do think that with his size, Husky, which is the nickel corner position, is an interesting landing spot for him, perhaps. So we'll have to see about that, whether he's actually going to play some Husky. But this is a projected corner at Alabama, Luke, and he joins Chuck McDonald, another California kid, and Zamir Smith in this class. So Alabama now has 3 corners committed. They'll probably now, in terms of DB, Luke, with these last few spots, I would think if Alabama gets another DB, it's probably going to be a kid who's more of a straight-up safety. That's where they need to add to go along with Derek Smith. And possibly, like I said, one of these 3 corners may end up playing Husky, which is cornerback / safety. Right now, Alabama's Huskies are in the safety room. Devontae Smith and Red Morgan are Alabama's 2 primary Huskies, and they practice with the safeties. They're coached by Colin Hitchler.
I did mute for a minute, but yeah, the thing that sticks out to me, I feel like this Dijon Lee's got like the attributes of Eddie Jackson and Mark Barron, but more of a corner.
I like that. I like that. The best comp I've got so far, and I want to continue. I know everybody says Richard Sherman, but doesn't everybody say that when there is a 6'3" corner out there? They say, Richard Sherman, because that's the one super big, tall corner everybody knows. I think the closest Bama comp for me is Dre Kirkpatrick, but Dijon is bigger. I mean, Dijon is bigger. He's more unique than Dre in that sense. He's already a longer, bigger guy, but he sort of plays like Dre. And if you go to watch his huddle tape with Dre Kirkpatrick in your mind, you'll go, yeah, there's some Dre there. I also think D Milner's close there too. D was also a pretty big dude.
Yeah, boy, it feels like D wouldn't. Maybe I'm misremembering Lee. I mean, not Lee. Maybe D and Lee. Maybe I'm misremembering, but it feels like he was maybe more slight.
Yeah.
Disagree?
Yeah. I think whenever you say this is what happens with the NFL stuff. D had a lot of injuries and a disappointing NFL career based on where he was drafted. And I think when you say he reminds you of D Milner, people remember his time with the Jets as opposed to how great he was at Alabama. And I think it sort of, it sort of affects, I think, when you say comps of players who ended up not being good in the NFL, and it shouldn't be that way. People should just think of how good D was at Alabama when you use that comp. But I think a better comp is Dre. I like how Luke compared him to safeties because really when you're talking about a kid the size of Dijon, only safeties, really matter because those are the only guys that have the size that he does. Kyrie Jackson is a pretty decent comp because he's that big. Yeah. But Kyrie also wasn't a hugely significant player at Alabama. Now, he obviously had a great season at Oregon, and he's now in the NFL. Where did he get drafted? 3rd round, maybe? Does that sound right?
Not sure.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you something, Jimmy. We got another guy that's coming up in just a minute, really about 6 minutes. He's going to commit, Josiah Sharma, and we're going to let you know where we think he ends up. But I got to tell you about Gametime. Y'all love Gametime. I do too. Gametime is the one live read I do, where y'all know I don't even look at the script. I just tell you this is a testimonial. I've used Gametime, I don't know, I'm going to say 8 to 10 times. And that's a lot for me. I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of things. So I've used them every time I needed tickets: college football, college basketball, NBA, NFL, World Series. Used it for all that stuff. I used it for college baseball. I used it for Alabama baseball. It is fantastic. Go check out the Gametime app. You will not be disappointed. I can assure you of that. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first order. You will absolutely love this app. It's so easy. I can operate it. That's how easy it is. You put the app on your phone, a couple of clicks. Next thing you know, you're in the ball game. And I'm gonna tell you something. I had one mess up one time, and I think it was my fault in retrospect, right? It was my fault. But they walked me through it and they fixed it. In the days of customer service gone bye-bye, you are happy to have customer service like Gametime has. Go check out Gametime. It's the best prices and the best seats. All that's guaranteed. Go check them out. Use code LOCKEDONCollege with your first purchase on the Gametime app. Okay, so Josiah Sharma, well, he's going to be committing here now in about 5 minutes. Now, Jimmy, the intel coming in late is leaning towards Oregon, which seems a little bizarre because it felt like it was Alabama. Then it felt like, oh, well, Texas is taking the lead. Now Oregon's gotten in there. Hey, I mean, that's recruiting in today's world. You know, Alabama's going to keep recruiting him even if he doesn't commit to the Tide today. We don't know he's not. We would say it's unlikely, correct?
Yeah, that's how we feel about it, BOL, is Oregon feels like they got last-minute momentum, as Luke said, and before it was Texas. So we're not expecting this to be Alabama. But at the same time, it is recruiting. You can't rule anything out. Josiah Sharma liked Alabama a ton. Had he committed 2 months ago, a month ago, probably is Alabama. But you know, as he dove deeper, went on his visits, things change. And also, hey, when you play high school football in California, Alabama is a long ways away. I know we've landed several California kids, but every situation is different. Everybody's family situation. It's not cheap, regardless of NIL. It's not cheap to travel from California to Alabama frequently. And it won't be cheap for him to travel to Oregon or Texas either. But yeah, we're not feeling as good about that one. But Luke and I did decide when we were going on the air, we think there's enough of a chance to like, hey, since we're going to do this show live, let's be live at 2:00. So we're here to tell you guys if it happened that Josiah Sharma chose Alabama, but we think it's going to be somewhere else. And hey, that's fine. I like to remind people about the defensive line position. There are 14 defensive linemen on scholarship at Alabama for just 3 spots, and only one of them is out of eligibility after this season, that being Tim Smith. So 13 can return to Alabama for 3 spots next season. So signing a number of defensive linemen was just not in the cards for Alabama. I think they would like to sign 3, and right now they have 2 in the kid from Mississippi, London Simmons, and of course Antonio Coleman from Saraland. Probably just 1 more would be fine, and they're in it for Justice Terry, the 5-star from Georgia. They're in it for Floyd Bocard, the Mobile transfer to Miami guy. They're in it for him. To say nothing of a couple of guys that are in pretty good shape for it. Bandit, like Javion Campbell. Growing word there. Growing momentum for Alabama with him. All he is the number 1 prospect in Kentucky, and a kid that might even be a little underranked. I mean, Javion's a big deal. Mute.
God, I was muted. I'm sorry. All right. So since you threw
up
a
live show, we're under a lot of pressure here.
We've already been scolded once. We got
live shows are hard. Live shows are hard. I don't just normally use bad words, but man, when we're live, it's like constantly monitoring the stuff coming out of my mouth. It's really, I don't know how Ryan Seacrest does it.
All right. When was the last prospect we got out of Kentucky? Now I'm going to say Brandon Dedrick.
No.
You've had somebody from Kentucky since then?
Oh yeah.
I don't remember any. And I love recruiting.
Tanner Bowles.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, and he didn't.
There has to be one since him too, right?
I get there probably does. And somebody in the comments will say it. But regardless, whatever. Here's one other thing, Jimmy, I want to throw out there. You and I mean, I've been laughing at you for saying, Dijon Lee, I'm going to call him Mustard. And I was like, that's the dumbest. If his name was Mustard and you called him Dijon, that's cool. Well, here's Hayes Fawcett's picture of his commitment. I mean, it says Mustard at the top, written in mustard, and then all the pictures. And I'm like, y'all just why give Jimmy that credibility? Because that's not worth
He calls him his name on IG. By the way, his name on his own social media accounts is Mustard Lettuce.
That can't be right.
It's what it is. I don't pick these things out. So he has embraced the Dijon. And if you think about it, hey, look what Kool-Aid was able to do at Alabama NIL-wise because of his name. I think Dijon Lee at Alabama, that Dijon Mustard deal is coming. I mean, it's coming. So he is smartly branding himself with that name. So, oh man, what a player! I mean, we've already talked about it, but gotta talk about it again. Dijon Lee is one heck of a cornerback prospect. Again, joining Chuck McDonald, joining Zamir Smith. 3 corners in Alabama needed numbers at corners. There's only 6 cornerbacks on scholarship at Alabama right now. Now, all of them are scheduled to return. I think we're all hoping Damani Jackson launches himself into the NFL draft based on how he plays this season. But that's wish casting. I'm guilty of that a lot, which is a projection that I make that I'm simply wanting to happen. I think a lot of us do that. And we'll say, hey, my prediction is this great thing is going to happen. That's wish casting. And but I also think it's reasonable based on Damani's size and speed and natural ability that he is that type of player. It just has to show up production-wise and playing-wise. Maybe the change in scenery, maybe being coached by Mo Linguist, maybe the competition at Alabama, playing in the SEC, maybe all those things. So Damani is a guy that could leave and go to the NFL, and you never know who's going to transfer out. But Alabama needed corners.
How did both of us forget Damian Harris? How did both of us forget Damian Harris is from Kentucky?
Did we sign Tanner Bowles since then?
Maybe we had Tanner Bowles since then. I don't know.
Okay.
You might be right.
Damian Harris is a great, and of course Sean Alexander, and then the forever ago time capsule. But Damian Harris definitely from Kentucky, and it seems like we've tried to sign a couple Kentucky kids and lost out on them for whatever reason. And that area doesn't produce a ton.
Who's the superstar? Like, I love this wide receiver at Kentucky. Who's
Marion Brown?
Yeah, I love him. All right,
from Tennessee, though.
Huh?
He's from Tennessee, isn't that right?
Is he from Tennessee? I thought he was from Kentucky. Maybe.
I think he's from Memphis.
Okay.
And chose Kentucky over Alabama. A lot of questions about him off the field when that was happening.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Josiah Sharma's ultimate commitment and a little bit about Kaleb Edwards, who is a tight end they'll be announcing in early July. And it's looking pretty good for Alabama right now. Okay, so Josiah Sharma, I've got his information up on this other screen here for when that happens. So if you're watching on delay, just letting you know we're doing this live because we thought it'd be kind of cool. He's actually on my YouTubers right now. But we will talk about Kaleb Edwards for a second. This is a tight end, another kid out of California. And Jimmy, I watched his huddle tape because I really hadn't been all that tuned into him because I mean, when you got Dijon Lee and all these other folks and Sharma and Dawson Merritt out there committing, I just put my focus other places. Dude is he's sort of a rambler. I mean, he's a rumble tumble kind of tight end. He's a monster. He's huge. I mean, now maybe it was his competition. Derrick Henry, who is big. Derrick Henry looked 10 times bigger than everybody he played against, but he still does in the NFL. Maybe this guy's the same way, but he had some unbelievable catches for a guy his size, nimble feet for a guy his size. enough speed to where I'm like, yeah, I like that. And he got open and he attacked the ball. He attacked the ball. He would go after it and go get it. Really, really excited about him if he happens to join this class, and it's looking good.
Yeah, Kaleb is look. I had this long thing on BOL about the tight end position when Tim Watts predicted Kaleb Edwards to Alabama. That was a big, not shocking to me, but a little bit of a surprise. I think some of our thoughts had been with Nick Townsend, but it looks like Texas maybe getting him at the end. But Kaleb Edwards, the reason that he's such a highly ranked, I mean, we're talking about the number 6 tight end in the whole country. The reason he's so good to me, Luke, is tight ends at the college level are normally, they're either a good blocker, and that's why they're there, or they're a good pass receiver, and that's why they're there. It's hard to find the guys that can do both. Kaleb Edwards is one of the both guys. I'll give you the good example here is Cam Latu. I think Cam Latu was drafted higher than most every Alabama fan will believe. I think a lot of Alabama fans watched Latu play and went, he's not an NFL player. Or what do you mean he's going to be drafted maybe day 2? Where's that coming from? Well, it's because Cam Latu was a good blocker and a good receiver. Those guys are just really hard to find. And he wasn't an excellent blocker at Alabama. He wasn't an excellent pass receiver at Alabama. He's just good at both. And that got him drafted relatively high. It's just hard to find a guy that could do both. Here, Kaleb Edwards, 6'6", 235. So he's a physical presence. I think before you watch his tape, you're thinking, okay, here's one of the blockers. Here's a blocker. He weighs 230. He's a monster, as Luke said. Here's a guy that's going to be super physical. Well, you watch his tape, you're like, you know what? This dude is absolutely a weapon catching the ball. He's a weapon. He's not beautiful. He's not sleek. He's not a Ferrari. He's more of an F-150, but he is absolutely dangerous as a pass receiver too.
Josiah Sharma did just commit to Oregon as suspected. I do not believe that Alabama will quit recruiting him. Yeah, I mean, it's a commitment. It counts, just like Georgia won't quit recruiting Dijon Lee.
Correct.
But at the same time, he's committed to Alabama, and this guy's committed to Oregon. So it's going to be a tough pull.
Scoring for my guy, Tosh Lupoy.
Yeah.
Good recruiter, man.
He is. And, I mean, Oregon's got Nike and Dan Lanning. I mean, they got a good thing going on. They're pretty good. So,
well situated in the NIL era. I always knew once NIL became the law of the land in 2021, one of my very first thoughts was watch Oregon. Oregon is well situated for the new college football. Still are. And now in the Big Ten, if you think about it, even though they feel fish out of water in that league, at least initially, they're in a better league. And now they got more money than they had before, now that they're in the Big Ten. And Oregon's got it going on. Good coach, too. I know Alabama fans sort of have a feeling about Dan Lanning based on the coaching search. But, hey, don't let that affect, how you feel about him as a coach at his age. He's a thing.
And listen, here's the other thing. I don't want anybody to get down because Sharma didn't commit to Bama. Look at it this way. Pretend that Sharma committed to Oregon first and then Dijon committed second. I think, like losing Sharma feels like, it sort of like takes the sting off probably, or not sting, the euphoria from getting Dijon Lee. But pretend they just flip-flop times and all of a sudden you're ecstatic. But here's one more thing that should be thrown out there. Caleb Cunningham tweeted right after On3 posted their commitment of Dijon Lee. He retweeted it and said, "Who's next?" I mean, you got to, read between the lines. I mean, here we are, 50-something-year-old dudes trying to read what a 17-year-old is tweeting. But you got to feel pretty good about that, right?
I do. And it's two things. One, I think every class projection that I would have done since February or March would have included Josiah Sharma in the defensive line. That's why this is a blow. It's like, I think projected class Sharma to Alabama has sort of been a thing since February or March. And then you lose that guy. So that's why it feels like a sting. But Caleb Cunningham, who I'm not sure I would have projected back in February or March, I don't think I would have said, hey, he's going to Alabama. I think at that time, people thought he would most likely stay in state, maybe at Mississippi State. Now, if you're doing a class projection right now, he's in it. He's in it. So that's exciting. We're talking with him, yet another 5-star type.
One more thing. I see a couple of folks in the comments saying that, hey, Sharma was barely a 4-star or high 3-star or whatever. And that's true. At the same time, he could have gone to Texas, Washington, Bama, or Oregon. And
exactly.
I mean, 3 of those at the very least. I mean, 3 of those were in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So
I tell people all the time, and I know rankings are big, and I work for a company that ranks players, and I'm into the rankings. Luke's into the rankings.
Yeah,
we're going to talk rankings here. But one test I always use in terms of how I know what we're getting, who did we beat him for? That who did you beat? If you're beating a kid for Georgia, then we got a Georgia player. If you're beating Oregon, you got an Oregon player. What you don't want to do is beat, I'm going to insult someone accidentally, Troy. We don't want to beat a Troy for a kid when you're at Alabama, because you know what that means? It means you got a player, you got a Troy player. And hey, some of the Troy players, as we know, end up being dudes. Some of that time, that's DeMarcus Ware, But I'm just saying, look who you're beating to get the kid to know the quality of kid you're getting.
Hello? Yeah. Hey, Troy University. Yes, I'll tell him. Thank you. Troy said to quit talking about them. I couldn't think of anybody at Troy. I just had to use like the basic. Hey, Troy University.
No, it's fine. Hey, Troy, while you're listening, sell beer for $1. I might come to a game.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast, guys. Thank y'all for joining us live. We had a blast. This was a ton of fun. We got 1 out of 2, and the one we got was a 5-star. So y'all be really happy. And until next time, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.